Hi, and welcome to this episode of Consciousness in Me. My name is Yusufi, and today I thought we would talk about truth. It's not so easy as that it sounds like. Sticking to truth. And I notice it even sharing in this channel and the podcast I've done before, that sometimes there's an idea of what I should talk about or what should be said. But that's not always what's truth. How do I speak from the depth of my own truth? And what does that even mean? It's so easy to confuse the fact that what's true in the sense of what does the book say? What does the teaching say? And that's not the same as living the truth, as being an embodiment of truth. And for me, anyway, it's a winding road. It's like I'm a drunk driver trying to stay on the path, finding myself down in the ditch over and over again, having to dust myself up and just get back and, whew, okay, I forgot about that. I don't know if you recognize yourself in that. But I don't have a Christian background, but I have a Christian background in the sense that I'm brought up in Sweden, which has its value founded on Christianity, but I've never been in a religious context in that sense. But there's one of the commandments that has really started to speak to me, and that is, thou shalt have no other gods. Not sure I reference it correctly, but that's the one. It's roughly like that. And for me, I started to realize that, hang on, maybe it actually points to that let the truth be my God. Let truth be my guidance. If I put fear, if I put people pleasing, if I put safety before truth, I'm going to be living in sin. I'm not sin in the sense of I've done something wrong or I'm not worthy, but sin in the way that Eckhart Tolle speaks about it. And Eckhart Tolle is a contemporary spiritual teacher, basically. Yeah. And he says that sin, the original meaning of it, is to miss the mark. Basically, if you don't live with alignment with what this moment is telling you to be true, you will suffer. But not as a punishment, but as a consequence of not living your own values, not living according to your inner guide. And that is not the same, or at least not for me, as to have a strict set of rules that I always follow. I will always be compassionate. I will always find time to listen to someone. I will always apologize. I will always, whatever I come up with. No, that's not it. That's making it easy for me. That's my mind grasping on to some kind of a rule book. And real truth doesn't work like that, I don't think. It's a matter of constantly being alert, not holding onto anything my mind tells me, no thought patterns, just being in alignment with myself, constantly aware and alert of what's coming up in me right now. And I don't want to sound vague in this. It's a very concrete thing, at least for me. What's right in one situation might not be right in another one. But it's always about speaking my truth, not trying to save anyone from the consequences of their actions or the consequences of their unconsciousness. If someone crosses a boundary of mine, it is my deepest truth to tell them so. Not in an attacking kind of way, not in a punishing kind of way, but just to speak my truth. Not save other people from their actions. Not fall into being a nice person. And a nice person for me, I don't mean that we're not going to be nice, but I mean like nice, and that my mind thinks that I'm never in conflict with anyone. I'm always there for other people's needs. And in truth, we cannot be. You cannot be a human and fill the needs of everyone else around you all the time. It's going to drain you, and it's going to make sure you cannot protect your own boundaries. So to not put any other God ahead of your intuition, ahead of your own truth. And for me, that's partly what makes this teaching so alive. Because I cannot know what my truth is the next moment. I have to be here, alert and listen in order to know it. I can only be a living embodiment of truth. Actually, one of the first realizations I had about this was I was attending a course, a coaching course in present coaching for the International Zen Coaching Network. And it was the first module, and I was sitting next to a guy. We were sitting quite a lot of people in a couch, and he came and sat close to me because it was quite tight in the sofa, and then people started drifting off, and we were sitting a bit too close to what's really, if it's only two people in the couch, you don't need to sit that close. But I was, it was quite comfortable, felt safe and intimate. And I remember thinking that, oh wow, but I don't know, how will I know when he doesn't want to sit like this anymore, when he's uncomfortable? And then it dawned on me that, oh geez, I don't actually know when I don't want to sit this close anymore. I have as little idea of when he's not going to be comfortable anymore as I am of when I'm not going to be comfortable anymore. And it's almost like this, I had this feeling of popping out of being a person and realizing that I don't have an idea of who I am. I don't know how I'm going to feel a moment from now. I don't know what I'm going to think a moment from now. And it was such a weird insight. And then somehow it just unraveled, and we parted ways. And when I went outside, they had this little Buddha statue standing on the entrance. And I remember looking at it thinking like, this is what you've been teaching the whole time, isn't it? That we don't know ourselves in the way that we can predict what's going to happen. We cannot predict what we're going to believe is a boundary crossing. We're not going to know what we want to say in response to anything. And when we think we do, we suffer, not as a punishment, but as a consequence of not being completely fluid, because we have tensed up. We have made a structure around life, basically, ourselves, our life. We live in sin. We're missing the mark. We've put this structure as our God, as our guiding light, rather than life itself, the way it tells us by intuition. And if you're unclear what intuition is, don't be alarmed. Many of us are. It takes practice to know the difference between ego impulses and intuition. And it's okay to get it wrong. But one of the ways to note this is that intuition whispers, and it usually keeps on coming. And the ego changes his mind a lot. It's very righteous. It makes the other person wrong and you right. Intuition doesn't really, or in my experience, speak like that. It speaks more in nurturing for everyone, in protection, or taking a leap in a way, but not against anyone, but for the cause of safety, for love, creativity, freedom, passion. Yeah. And sometimes it might just come in such small whispers that we can't hear it if we're too identified with the structure and being right and pointing fingers and guilt tripping ourselves. So it's a skill, but it's there underneath the surface. We know what our truth is. And when we align with it, life flows. And I also think that's what's meant with this phrase of only nobody gets through the gates of heaven. Meaning that when we're nobody, when we don't hold on to the structure of who we think we are, when we let go of knowing what's going to come up in me the next moment, how I'm going to react to a situation, when I'm just completely open, curious, not knowing who I am, just living myself in the moment, then I am nobody. I don't have a preconceived idea of who I am, and then heaven reveals itself. Then I am in heaven. But the moment I grasp onto something, the moment I say that, oh, I should react like that, or if he says that, then I'm gonna say this because, or I'm the kind of person who blah blah blah. No, I fall back down. I'm evicted from heaven. I live in sin again. How does this resonate with you? Living in truth, staying on the path, holding truth in the highest regard, using that as your guiding light. I know Adyashanti, he's a Zen Buddhist teacher, and he says that his teacher said, only phonies don't get enlightened. And for me, that's, I love that expression, partly because it's a bit sharp, it's a bit edgy, but also because it carries truth. And it's not because some people are phonies, it's just that when we are not authentic, when we're not in touch with our own truth, that's the opposite of enlightenment. That's the opposite of living in not knowing, of being an embodiment of not knowing. Using our mind as a tool, not as a master, not as a carrier of guidance on the deeper level of knowing who we are. Seeing the mind as a tool. You don't ask your calculator who you are. You ask it to do calculations. You don't ask your hammer who you are. You apply the hammer when the tool is needed. And you just are who you are. And same with the mind. And a little whisper of warning, maybe. Telling the truth is an art form. Because telling the truth is not speaking what my thoughts say. It's not telling people that I like them or I don't like them, or I have this opinion, or this is what I think of them. No, that's not so interesting what I think. That's not really the truth. That's just these thoughts are going through my head. The deeper truth is more likely that it makes me not feel safe when you do that. It's hard for me to connect with you. When you interrupt me, I don't feel seen. And that makes me sad because we cannot collaborate in a way that would feel nourishing for me. Those are the deeper truths. And that's quite vulnerable to share that. So we usually default to just saying what our thoughts are. Even for ourselves, we stay on the thought level. But truth penetrates everything. Our needs, our feelings, our bodily contractions. And we have to put all of that on the line if we're going to follow truth. And then the question is, why do we want to follow truth? I don't know, I think is the final answer. It's just the most meaningful thing I can find for myself, and I get richly rewarded. I get to shed layers. I get to access more love, more freedom, more happiness, more peace, less fear. I can let go of control because there's nothing to control. I just share my truth. I make decisions based on my truth, not my analysis of what could happen and what about this and trying to control the outcome. And then it's also zero manipulation for other people. I give them the gift of my truth, and I trust that if it's comfortable or uncomfortable for them, cannot take responsibility for that. What do I know that they need to awaken? What do I know that they need to get closer to their love, to their freedom? Me accommodating other people's unconscious patterns, not necessarily a loving thing to do. And it's not necessarily a loving thing to point it out either. Trying to think back what I even wanted to say with this episode. I guess it was a tribute to truth and what it's like to actually try to align with an awakened way of being. It's not a rosy path only. At least it's not for me. But that's reality. That's aliveness. That's when life flows. I think we're approaching the end of this episode. And if you have anything you'd like to share, any insights of yourself that you have, or any questions, then please feel free to fill up the comment section. Thank you for sharing this moment with me, and I hope to see you next time.